Welcome back, college baseball central fans. The start of a new show. It's Jake McKeever, Joey. CBC Texas has rebranded to be CBC Big 12, and then we're going to have an A&M offshoot show on top of that. Joey, you're kind of the resident Big 12 guy now. How are you feeling currently about the state of the Big 12 before we talk about this weekend? Who's impressed you so far? Who's kind of disappointed you so far?
I mean, to start off from a very biased standpoint, Texas is starting to look good. They've taken the series against the two best teams in the conference right now, and they're in a very good footing. Like, I'm also looking at Kansas. Kansas is, while they did drop 2 out of 3 against Kansas State, they've done pretty good recently. So those are the two that I've been looking at when it comes to but still a wide open race so far. So it's going to be an interesting ending, like always, in the Big 12.
Yep, it's as wide open as it's ever been in the Big 12. I'll go kind of negative since you went kind of positive. Houston has really, really not impressed me at all. I thought they were going to be a little bit better coming in. They swept Baylor the first series, and ever since then they went away to Utah, really kind of disappointed. And then Kansas State. I thought Kansas State was going to be pressing near the top of the division, and again they kind of sit way, way behind in kind of that pecking order. And again, they're kind of on the outside looking in from a tournament standpoint. Um, Again, Houston really hasn't impressed. UCF hasn't really impressed. BYU and Cincinnati. Cincinnati relatively has impressed, but again, Kansas State sits at 12-12 in the Big 12 standings. They are going to make that Big 12 tournament, but again, I thought that they were going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree with Kansas State. They looked really good leading into when I watched the Kansas State Texas series, and they have not been the same team after the Longhorns took 2 out of 3. So they've been kind of up and down, but expected a lot more out of the Wildcats this year.
Yep. The top story, obviously, Oklahoma leads the Big 12 at 18-6. They do have a record now actually, it's right at 500 at 11-11 in Big 12 play. Oklahoma State sits at 15-9, but they hold the tiebreaker. Texas also sits at 15-9, hold the tiebreaker over Oklahoma as well. West Virginia sits at 15-9, tied for third. Kansas, Cincinnati, Kansas State, respectively. TCU at 13-14. UCF at 11-12. They are going to play one less game. Texas Tech at 12-15. Baylor 9-15, and then Houston, BYU on the outside looking in. There's still a little bit of meat on that bone for Houston and BYU, but they would have to go undefeated the rest of the way, and then either Texas Tech or UCF would have to lose every single game. So just the slimmest of margins as both of those Baylor's magic numbers are one. I guess we'll start with kind of the series of the weekend. Texas Tech heads up to Oklahoma State at Oak Oklahoma State really needs it after they dropped the series last week at Texas. They still have kind of Big 12 hopes a little bit, as well as wanting to host. Texas Tech, on the flip side, has lost 6 straight and is really kind of fluttering and needing the series. Probables is Sam Garcia versus Ryan Free on Friday night, Brian Holiday on Saturday versus Kyle Robinson, and then the normal outfielder two-way star Carson Benj has been starting on Sunday. In Tech, it's kind of a mixed bag. Joey, I guess we'll go with you first. What are you expecting out of this series between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech?
I mean, for starters, you got two teams that are looking to salvage a not too good season. Like, I can't talk tonight. Sorry. Salvaging a not too great recent stretch. I mean, the way Tech looked against Oklahoma, like I peered on and off looking at the series, and it was not pretty for the Red Raiders. So it's a big old. So basically going to be survival for both of these teams moving forward if they want to have regional host aspirations, if even that. But it's going to be interesting to see which team responds to the if either one can start turning their season around for the better.
Yeah, there has been a ton of adversity for both of these teams. Obviously, Texas Tech has a series loss to Baylor, where they got swept earlier in the year. If you think that they kind of figure it out, they go in and sweep West Virginia, and then ever since then, I mean, it's been a completely different team. They lost to New Mexico 17-3. Kansas came into town, swept them. They really are kind of getting in desperate times here. OU came to town, swept them. I think it was the first time in like 15 years that they'd been swept at home. OU really is kind of in the driver's seat. We'll talk about them later. And then Oklahoma State, I feel like just when they start to figure it out and you think that, hey, they'll get a marquee series win over a team that's really giving them fits in Texas, this is where they kind of get rolling here. They dropped 2 of 3. And they lost on Friday, which was the first time I think Texas had won a Friday night start in Big 12 play. That includes series losses to Washington on Friday night. They lost on Friday night in Houston. So it really has been kind of a struggle for Texas on Friday night, and Oklahoma State kind of comes in. Credit to them for kind of bouncing back. But again, that was a series that, looking back, Oklahoma State's going to really wish they took because they had a chance to make up ground against Oklahoma. And again, they're falling further and further behind there in the Big 12. Joey, prediction time. What do you think? It's at Oklahoma State. What do you see in this weekend from these two teams?
I think Oklahoma State takes 2 out of 3 because I was at 2 to 3 series games this series up here at Dish Falk this weekend. And I saw an Oklahoma State team that was not too far off from the Longhorns. Like Texas won Friday, Saturday, and late come from behind fashion, and of course taking the Sunday game pretty convincingly. So I think OSU will rebound and take the series pretty good over the Red Raiders.
Yep. I'm with you as well. This will be a game that I'll actually be in attendance at. I'll be at this one, OU and TCU this weekend. So really excited to kind of see Brian Holiday again, as this will be my third time seeing him. Every time he just continues to impress. I think Oklahoma State needs to sweep. But again, Texas Tech's very, very desperate. They need to take 2 of 3 if they really want to get back into this tournament groove. Because again, I think if they get swept, that would be 9 straight Big 12 losses. They have to feel completely out of it. And again, it's been a long, long time since Texas Tech missed the tournament. Moving on to the next series, Texas versus UCF at UCF. Friday, we expect Max Grubbs to continue being in that Friday night role. Saturday, I think we'll see Ace Whitehead for Texas, and then LeBaron Johnson in kind of that opener Sunday role. UCF will probably see Ben Vespi, Dog Stalino, and then Cade Boxrucker has been their traditional Sunday guy. Joey, this is kind of your area of expertise. UCF is kind of a tough team to go in and play down there in Orlando.
Yeah.
It's almost turned into like a Tech 2.0. They took a series from Oklahoma State. What does Texas need to do to walk away from a victory? Because again, I think that they're still win or get left behind mode. I know that they have some impressive series wins, but again, they have to continue to win, I think, to get in the tournament.
The best way to put it for right now for the Longhorns, don't rest on their laurels. They can handle anybody when they want to. So UCF does feel like a trap series to them, especially coming off 2 big series wins against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And UCF has shown signs of looking like a decent ball club. Like you were saying, there's been series wins over Oklahoma State, Tech. They did give West Virginia a very, very tough series. I know they got swept in that series, but that was the total run score. They only were like, it was a 1-run ball game, 2-run ball game, and a 1-run ball game. So
confession time. I thought UCF was a lot higher in the standings than they actually were. I know Mike and I have been doing, the bracketologies. We've been checking a lot on their RPI. They have an insanely high RPI. So you almost just kind of forget that they've lost the series that they have. But again, I do feel like this is a trap series for Texas. Because again, everything has been going their way lately. They go take 2 of 3 from Oklahoma. Ever since that Houston Sunday game and that 9th inning when they scored 9 runs, it really has felt like a different Texas team. And, Pierce getting ejected, everything seems to be kind of going their way. Again, UCF is going to be
tidbit. Texas has only lost 1 series in conference play, and that's to the team in dead last in BYU.
So that is a little bit funny that is the case.
And it was a home series too here in Austin. So I'm starting to get a little worried about it being a trap. Then again, I thought that against U of H too, but UCF is not a team to be sleeping on. That's for sure.
Here's another kind of weird stat for you. Texas has won every game 2 of a series.
Yep.
Like the BYU series, the one that they won was on the quote unquote Saturday. It was on Friday, obviously. Yeah, because BYU plays a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Their Friday night troubles have been very, very well documented. And again, they look to be rolling right now. I mean,
Mhm.
it is a completely different Texas team than the one that I saw the first 8 innings in Houston. They won that game. I know they dropped that one to Rio Grande, UDRGV.
UTRGV.
Yep. They got Peyton Tollied, but I think everybody's kind of been Peyton Tollied at this point in this year.
Yeah.
But again, they play UCF, they play Kansas. Texas has an RPI of 51. They have a strength of schedule of 28. They have a few terrible, terrible losses. They're 10-8 in teams over 100. But
Yeah.
again, they're a weird team because I feel like one of these Big 12 teams has to host. And the way that if Texas wins the Big 12, I mean, people are going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But again,
Mhm.
UCF's a lot better than their record leads on. They have an RPI of 31. They were actually the highest team left out of the tournament. For us, they gave West Virginia fits even though that they were swept all run games. Kansas State they went and beat. Tech they beat. This is a very very talented UCF team that loaded up in the portal with mature ACC level guys. So again, I think UCF's going to be the blueprint. I think they're going to be a very very dangerous Big 12 team going forward. But I think this one's going to be all Texas, don't you say, Joey?
I'm probably going to go the other way. I know I should be pro Longhorns here, but I think UCF's going to win a very tight game in a 3-gamer. I think we win Friday night. Grubs will have a good start, and then Saturday, Sunday will be UCF. UCF will win late innings on Saturday, and then they'll win on Sunday. Because I've been
So you're
doing,
you're predicting the first Texas Saturday loss in conference play?
yeah, but it won't be more so of Whitehead. It'll be more of like a late. I see it being like a late game, both teams scoring a lot of runs kind of situation. So
Yeah, I'm excited to see kind of how Texas handles it.
mhm.
Can they get another Friday night win? Because we know that they can win on Saturday. And I will say shout out to Logan. I forgot about the Texas Tech one that they did lose on Saturday there.
Yeah,
That one just feels like an eternity ago. I know that was a signature win for Texas, but now it's almost like looking like, ugh. But again, I think Texas. I'm interested to see how they play on Saturday and Friday. Because again, I think Sunday they're one of the best Sunday teams in the country.
yeah.
Because LeBaron, if LeBaron can figure out his pitch count, which it feels like he's starting to is that doesn't sound right. It feels like he is starting to figure out his pitch count. And again, LSU had a very very simple approach with LeBaron Johnson all the way back in Houston, and teams have kind of replicated it. I think that he's kind of working on some new stuff. He's attacking the zone a little bit, starting his off speed a little bit higher. And I think that he's going to work into a fourth, fifth inning this week. That's my bold prediction: is LeBaron Johnson works into a fourth or fifth inning this weekend.
I think so
Um,
too. I see Sunday being more of like a lower scoring game.
Moving on to another series that I'll be at, Baylor is heading up to Norman. We're going to see Mason Marriott on Friday against Braden Davis, Colin McKinney on Saturday against Kyson Witherspoon, and then Mason Green versus a TBA, as OU really hasn't had that one defined. OU has to sweep, right? This has to
Yeah,
be an OU sweep. Their
yeah.
margin is so thin in the Big 12 right now because of their out of conference record.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be a sweep.
Has to be a sweep. And I was about to say Baylor has not looked good by any means. They've lost the last 8, yeah, 8 conference games in a row, and this should be an opportunity for the Sooners to pounce and try to get that sweep pretty convincingly. Like this is literally probably the worst Baylor has looked all year.
Yeah, and this is 6 in a row. 3 at TCU, 3 at West Virginia, 2 at Kansas. They did sweep BYU. That one again feels like eternity, as that was one of the first ones
Yeah,
in a long, long time that they went on the road and swept somebody. But OU just continues to impress me in Big 12 play. Every part of me says that they shouldn't be good. They don't do a lot of things very well. But again, I think that Easton Carmichael, Anthony McKenzie are really going to be first team Big 12ers. And again, they're outside inside the Big 12, I think that they're the most dangerous. But again,
yep.
Nicklaus is playing better. Spikerman's starting to get a little bit healthier, and his bat's starting to get going. Kendall Pettis is again another guy that's been around a long, long time. I mean, OU is a mature team. They're a team that's been to Omaha. They really have bigger aspirations. And again, Baylor just needs one win to make the Big 12 tournament, and it's eluded them for the last 6 games. They get OU and UCF, as that TCU midweek doesn't count for Big 12 play. Do you think that they get 2 of 3 here? I mean, do you think that they get 1 of 3 here, or do you think OU sweeps them?
I think OU sweeps them.
Yeah, I mean, Mason Marriott is a tough Friday night guy, and I really like Green as their Sunday guy. But again, OU, I think, just has too talented of bats. They are really, really talented. I feel like they're
Mhm.
a team that's about to get rolling down the stretch here as they kind of have played their way into being a host going forward. And again, that's something that I know Kendall was really high on them a while back, like to start the season, and I was very low on them. RPI of 17, they're worthy of a host. And I think that they're going to be the lone Big 12 host. I know I said Oklahoma State a few weeks ago, but it feels like Oklahoma.
Yeah, so heading into the season, I had Oklahoma State as the team, my non-Texas team that I was high on, and I'm still holding on to that. And I think Stillwater will be the host coming out of the Big 12 still, even with the
Yeah, again,
Texas
it's an
loss.
interesting debate because Oklahoma State's better out of conference and they hold the strength of schedule, but OU has more Big 12 wins.
Eh,
They have a higher RPI. So again, it's going to be the committee it does not they want to have a Big 12 team. They want to have West Coast teams. It's going to be splitting hairs, and someone's going to be
yeah,
very annoyed.
gonna
They're
break
going to
it
pull up some
down.
obscure
Yeah,
facts where it's like, oh, they've never had this.
it
um,
might come down to who played better against Texas, if we're being honest.
yeah, and again, they both lost to
And
a
they both,
three.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, it's really, I mean, there's a caveat there because the OU series ended with a storm that never ended. So who
Yeah, but
knows? I
Texas
mean,
was winning, and I
Texas
think
was winning.
yeah, Texas was winning. Let's not
It,
pretend that OU was like,
that
you
was
know,
a game. The Sunday,
it was
that
a back
Sunday
and
game,
forth game that
back and
Texas kind of
forth.
had the
Yeah,
momentum. Yeah, it was a very back and forth game, but again, I don't know. I don't know if OU would have come back from 2 runs. Like
yeah,
that's one of those things where coulda, woulda, shoulda.
yeah.
But again, Oklahoma State, like I said, they were competitive in those
They
games, but they
were
still lost
competitive.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to our next series, West Virginia versus Kansas State. West Virginia at 15-9, like we said, is tied for second place. Kansas State sits at 28-19, RPI of 37. So they're kind of on that bubble right near that cut line where you kind of have to worry about them getting snuck up behind by some bid stealers. This feels like a very, very important series for both of them. West Virginia's kind of starting to get healthy. They're going to be at home. They're just demolishing the ball out of Penn State this weekend or right now as this game's going on, as it was 8-0 in the first, and then Kansas State's in that bubble. I want Kansas State to come out and flex against an
Yep.
opponent. They kind of did it against Oklahoma State, but we really haven't seen them look dominant in a while and showcase Tyson Neighbors in that bullpen, showcase Kalen Culpepper. It seems like it's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back with them. I know with Texas we said 1 step forward, 2 step backs earlier. Kansas State just feels like they always do just enough to get you talking about them, but they never do enough to kind of work their way into a host. And again, if a few of these series kind of go their way, like they really realistically could be a host.
They
Like
could be. Yeah.
they have the talent to be a host. I mean, Kalen Culpepper's top 15 draft pick. Tyson Neighbors is probably the best reliever coming out of the draft. I really like Brady Day. There's a lot to like about this Kansas State team going forward. But again, show me. Like they've struggled at times. And again, I really want to see more from Kansas State.
Yeah, I agree with that. They did have a pretty nice series win last week over a previously hot Kansas team.
Mhm.
So I like that goes well for them. And
But they've always dominated the
they've
Sunflower
always
Series.
dominated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always been kind of like how Texas always struggles up in Manhattan. Kansas State
Manhattan.
always beats Kansas in baseball.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about West Virginia? They're kind of starting to get healthy. They're a team that just absolutely rakes. I know that JJ Weatherhold is kind of, the showstopper guy you circle in the lineup, but they have a few guys outside of him that really do kind of bang the ball around the yard. They sit at 15-9, tied with Texas. How do you feel about them going forward? And how do you feel about them in a Big 12 play? Because I feel like they're another one where they need to have a few more signature wins going forward.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule right now. I mean, they don't really. Yeah, they can hit the ball for sure because they did take 2 out of 3 against Oklahoma, and OU 2 of the 3 lost 2 of the 6 in conference play. Then they put up 15 against Oklahoma State, so they definitely have a top end lineup, and they
And then
just
again, but then they go to Tech and get
they
swept,
go
and
tech and
they
get
they get 2
swept.
runs, 4 runs, and a run. Like that's the thing is, it's like okay, they bang the ball around the yard, but then they get into some place where they feel like
They're
you
in a,
should elevate, and then they don't do anything. That's why I said
yeah,
it's
they're in a similar state that Texas was in a month ago about the pitching ambiguity. So if
yeah.
some arms definitely need to step up. Like where is West Virginia's Grubbs and Whitehead are going to step up and make West
Yeah.
Virginia a good team to a great team.
They had won 4 in a row in the Big 12. Obviously, they're on a 2-game losing streak to Cincinnati, and we'll talk about Cincinnati here in a second, as they've really been the surprise team for me in the Big 12. They need it this weekend against Kansas State. They need it against TCU again. I think that they're in the tournament, but again, 17-10 looks a lot better than 16-11, and
Yep.
they're kind of right. I think they're going to be good, but I'm sure that they would much rather be a host or a 2 than be a 3 in a very, very tough regional. And again, it's one of those things where you have to continue to win. They have 6 kind of toss-up games against 2 teams that are very, very desperate to kind of increase their resumes. I really think that this is going to be a toss-up series for me. I think it's a 2 of 3, but I guess we'll go to predictions, Joey. Who do you think comes out on this series?
Ooh, let me think about this for a second, because I'm like, part of me is thinking maybe West Virginia, part of me is thinking Kansas State. I'm just gonna say Kansas State in 3. No, I'm sorry, 2-1. I'm just like all over the place today.
So you think 2 of 3, Kansas State 2 of 3?
Kansas State, yeah, 2 or 3.
All right, I'm going to go West Virginia 2 of 3. I don't know when they're going to get it. I know that they'll probably win on a Sunday, but I really think West Virginia kind of bounces back. But looking ahead, I think that they lose against TCU. So it's going to be a very, very,
I think
yeah,
TCU takes the series, because TCU, I still believe in them barely. I know I said a couple weeks ago the window of opportunity may be closing, but I just get this feeling like I think TCU is going to break through, and they're going to beat West Virginia, and they're going to make a nice little run in the Big 12 tourney.
I'm excited to see kind of where they go from here. But again,
Hmm.
moving on to our Thursday, Friday, Saturday BYU, we get Sundays off special. Cincinnati, again, is a team that's a surprise of the Big 12. They are the best of the newbies at 13-11, 27-21 overall. BYU, again, they're sit at 19-26, 6-18 in the Big 12. They are one of 2 Big 12 teams that are under 500, along with Baylor. Seth Luge, I think is how you pronounce it, is who we project to go for Cincinnati. BYU is kind of up in the air as they use a lot of guys. Tommy Boba on Saturday against Bryce Robinson for BYU. Then Nathan Taylor against Ben Hansen on Sunday. This is one where it's kind of like a pride series. I think both of them are firmly out of the NCAA tournament. BYU is, for all intensive purposes, out of the Big 12 tournament. Cincinnati can kind of pick up a little ground if they have a better series than Kansas and Kansas State. Again, if they could be a 5, that would be just an insane thing for them. And again, that's a very, very impressive season for them. But again, what do you think is the keys for this weekend for Cincinnati as they kind of go in and face a reeling BYU team? That's lost 2-3 to Miami. Got swept by Oklahoma State, got swept by Oklahoma, got swept by Baylor. Again, they've lost 9 Big 12 series in a row. They've just fallen off the face of the earth, it seems.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think about, because BYU looked like a decent-looking team a month ago in Austin, but everything that has transpired since has just been not pretty, to say the least. But Cincinnati's in the position to where they'll be playing with house money, so that's another team like TCU that I could see making a run. I know they got OU but in Cincinnati to end the season, but
yeah, but you don't know how OU is going to attack that
yeah, you
series.
don't know
We
how.
should clarify that because that's the one right before Big 12 play.
Yep.
That the OU doesn't need that series by any stretch of the imagination. So you
Could
don't
be
know if they're going to
one
try and
seed.
you don't know if they're going to try and sweep
Yeah.
Cincinnati and then figure some things out in Arlington. You don't know if they want to figure things out before and then pitch their guys in Arlington to keep them on rest. Again, that's an interesting one with Cincinnati. But again, yeah,
That really
like you said,
is.
they are playing with house money. They are playing a BYU team that is reeling and down and really has nothing to play for outside of pride. I think Cincinnati continues the BYU woes. I think
Yep.
that they go in, they take 2 of 3 or even sweep them out. And again, credit to Cincinnati. I did not think that they were going to be the best of the newbies. I thought they were going to be 4 of 4. They were really bad last year in the AAC, but credit to those guys. I know they're an older team. They're one that's had a lot of mass exodus of talent pretty recently as they've had guys go on and play bigger and better things. But, credit to Cincinnati. I really feel good about them going forward.
Yep, I completely agree with that. Cincinnati has done a great job in their first year in the Big 12, and should be interesting to see how they do in the coming years in the Big 12.
Yeah, and then another newbie as we kind of transition. Houston goes up to Kansas. Houston obviously only played 2 last weekend, so Antoine Jean pitched last night for them. Houston's looked pretty good in midweeks, I should say.
Yeah,
Haven't looked really good in Big 12 play. They are definitely going the wrong way. Ever since that BYU series, they really kind of have been in a funk as they lost 2, 3, 5, 8. Ugh, I didn't realize they lost this many. 11 in a row in Big 12 play, and obviously they lost 2 of 3 at Texas, so 13 of 14 in Big 12 play. Again, they won at Cincinnati on Sunday, but they lost the 2 before that. They lost UCF. They are going the wrong way really, really fast. I thought they were going to be a lot better. They're an
yep,
older team. They do a lot of things well. Jonathan French is pretty good. Tulamero is really good. But again, their pitching, I know that Kansas State's coach spoke very, very highly of the depth of their bullpen. And again, I don't know what's in the water down at Houston. They just seem to kind of lose. Like they never seem to put it all together. Like when their bats go quiet, their pitching's really good. When their pitching's really good, or when their pitching goes quiet, their bats are really, really loud, but they don't do anything. I'm really interested to see kind of what Houston does and see if they have a little bit of pride going forward. I think that they'll run out a lot of new guys. They'll play Kansas and Oklahoma State in the final 2. But again, how do you feel about Kansas as a tournament team? RPI in the 60s. They sit at 27 and 17, 13 and 11. But again, I think that they're one of the hottest teams in the country. Like we said, they swept Tech.
mhm.
They did drop 2 of 3 last weekend to Kansas State. There's still a lot of chances for them to get wins here. I think if they go 4-2 down the stretch, they feel like a tournament team.
I
That
think
would
so.
that
Mhm.
would put them at 17 and 13, which again, we were saying that didn't look very good for some of the other teams in the Big 12. That looks really good for
Kansas would be
Kansas.
good. Yeah, and I'll
Um,
definitely be there for the Kansas Texas weekend a series finale. I can't finale for the regular season. I'll be there Thursday and Friday, so it's going to be interesting to see how that series pans out. I know
yeah, I'm
Texas.
excited to see that one. I'm excited to see kind of that Oklahoma State series with Houston too as well.
Mhm.
Um, as we're we're running out of time here and we're kind of speeding it up. We'll go quick here. I think Kansas sweeps. I think that they have everything in their power to sweep this weekend. Houston, I could see them kind of folding the tent, maybe playing some guys that don't normally play, like their freshmen, so they can kind of build for the future. But again, I think that Kansas sweeps this weekend. Is that kind of what
I
you're seeing?
I think Houston pulls out a victory out of the blue. They'll put one, but Kansas will take the other two for sure.
I think so too as well. And then our final series, again, I'll be there on Sunday. New Mexico State is going to be the quote unquote Big 12 bye this weekend as they play TCU. Peyton Tully's going to go Friday. Klecker was going on Saturday. He's kind of been moved to a bullpen role. And then Luis Rodriguez in that Sunday role. New Mexico State, they go with Cade Swinson on Friday, Connor Wild on Saturday, and then everybody's favorite to be determined on Sunday. I think that this is one where TCU gets rolling. I think that they sweep. Everybody's going to freak out on it, and they're going to want to see TCU in the tournament going forward. But again, at the end of the day, TCU has the RPI to get in there. They're going to be playing in the Big 12 tournament. So, that's one of the kind of unofficial qualifiers. If you can't play in your own tournament, why should you play the NCAA tournament? I think TCU has a really good shot to impress a lot of people this weekend. And then again, when they face West Virginia and Baylor in that kind of midweek, they're going to be in a great, great position going forward. Because again, RPI of 29, non-conference RPI of 5. They swept Baylor last weekend, 2 of 3 from Kansas State, 2 of 3 from Tech. They really are kind of working in the right direction here for the last month. And again, that's what they did last year. They really
Yep.
struggled around this time last year, and then they got hot at the right time. And I think that that's kind of what's happening again this year.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, the more I've been looking at TCU's recent stretch, I'm just like, this team might awaken, and once they awaken, they could go on a very lengthy run in both the Big 12 tournament, maybe to a super regional, perhaps, is how I see it. I don't
They
feel
were
like,
a What were you gonna say? You don't see
I
them going back to
I
Omaha?
I don't see them going to Omaha, but I can see them easily getting the supers. Well, they'll give whoever they play run of their money.
They can still hit. A lot of their
Mhm.
bats had kind of down seasons for them. Ryder Robinson, I think, is kind of having freshman moments. Carson Bowen was hitting 230. They Anthony Silva, I think, is kind of accepted his role a little bit more. I know a lot of people had higher aspirations for him. I think some people even had him as a Golden Spikes candidate. But again, I think that TCU's kind of starting to learn who they are. Logan Maxwell's continued to impress. Chase Brunson's been a really, really nice surprise for them. And again, they're going to get a Friday night victory every time that they roll out there.
Yep.
New Mexico State is an interesting team though, because they hit the ball really, really well at home when they have that high of elevation. But outside of that, they really struggle on the road. So I think that this is a TCU sweep. Yeah, they're 8-13 away from home, 9-12 in the Conference USA. So again, not really a tough gauntlet of a conference, but they have some teams at the top. TCU's got a sweep in every sense of the word this weekend.
Yep. They have to. I think they're going to.
All right, Joey, we just passed that 30-minute mark. I think that's all we have time for. Again, we're going to be doing this every Wednesday going forward in place of our Texas show. Any questions that you send us about Big 12 stuff, we will try and get to. But again, this has been Joey and Jake. See y'all, everybody, later.
See y'all later.